This single in-bed exercise strengthens your legs faster than walking after 60. This is a serious matter. When doctors say that death begins in the legs, it is not an exaggeration. After 60, it is the strength of your legs that determines whether you will climb a staircase on your own, get up from a chair without support, or simply keep walking through your own home without depending on anyone. Weak legs do not just mean less energy, they mean less independence and fewer years of quality life. The problem is that most people put off this care while waiting to have the time, the motivation, or a gym nearby. That is why today you will see how to strengthen your legs without even needing to get out of bed. No excuses about not having time or a gym. You can do this quickly every morning when you wake up. Do not be fooled. Unlike what it may seem, the bed does not make the movement easier. It makes everything more unstable, forcing your legs to recruit deeper muscle fibers than walking itself does. Before we get started, please leave your name and the city you are watching from in the comments below. We would love to know. Exercise number 1, ankle circles. Even before any of the larger leg muscles come into play, it is the ankle that decides whether circulation will flow well through your body in the morning. The calf is called the second heart by physiologists because it literally pumps blood back upward, against gravity, toward the heart. Without that pumping action, blood tends to pool in the lower parts of the body, especially after hours of lying down. Rotating the ankles in circles activates exactly that muscular pump in the calf, even before you put your feet on the floor. The muscle groups involved here are the tibialis anterior, the peroneus longus and brevis, and the deep fibers of the calf. To perform the exercise, lie flat on your back, with your legs slightly extended or resting on a pillow. Rotate your feet in full circles, first clockwise, then counterclockwise, as if you were drawing a circle with the tip of your foot. The extra tip here is to start with small circles and gradually increase the range of motion, as this improves ankle proprioception and prevents stiffness. A common mistake is moving only the toes, thinking you are working the ankle, when in reality the movement needs to come from the entire joint. Another mistake is performing the circles too quickly, which reduces the actual range of motion. Do 2 to 3 sets of 10 to 15 circles in each direction for each leg. It is worth noting that the calf is a predominantly slow-twitch muscle, which is why it responds better to longer sets, and strengthening it also helps with balance, reducing the risk of falls, which is one of the biggest concerns after 60. Gait specialists often observe that restricted ankle mobility is directly associated with shorter steps and a higher energy cost when walking, since the body needs to compensate with other joints for what the ankle is no longer doing. A simple variation to progress is to alternate between resting your feet on the mattress and keeping them slightly elevated in the air during the circles, which increases the demand on the leg stabilizers without complicating the movement. If you notice more stiffness on one side, that is normal. Each ankle has its own history of use throughout life, so respect the pace of each leg and avoid forcing perfect symmetry right at the beginning. Contraindications: people with a recent ankle fracture or suspected active deep vein thrombosis should avoid this movement and seek medical guidance before performing any exercise for the lower limbs. Exercise number 2, lying knee to chest. After an entire night in the same position, it is common for the lower back to wake up tenser than you would like. I know the temptation is sometimes just to hit snooze one more time, but this movement takes far less time than that, and already begins to release the muscles that will support your legs throughout the entire day. This exercise primarily stretches the gluteus maximus and the spinal erectors in the lower back, while actively engaging the iliopsoas, the main hip flexor, as you pull the knee toward your chest. To perform it, lying flat on your back, bring one knee toward your chest, holding it with both hands behind the thigh or just below the knee. Keep the opposite leg relaxed, extended on the mattress, or with the foot resting flat, whichever is more comfortable to protect your lower back. The extra tip is to breathe deeply while holding the stretch, releasing the air slowly with each gentle pull, as this further relaxes the muscles. A common mistake is pulling the knee with excessive force, causing discomfort in the joint itself, or holding your breath during the movement, which increases tension instead of reducing it. Hold for 20 to 30 seconds, repeating 3 times on each side, alternating between legs. Recommendation: if you have difficulty reaching behind your thigh with your hands, use a towel or an elastic band looped behind the knee to make the stretch easier without straining the spine. As flexibility improves over the weeks, you can progress by increasing the hold time for each repetition, moving from 20 to 30 seconds, and then from 30 to 45 seconds, always respecting your own body's comfort limit. Regular practitioners often report that the feeling of heaviness in the lower back upon waking decreases noticeably within the first 2 weeks of consistent practice, which also makes those first steps out of bed much easier. Contraindications: people with a recent hip replacement, or a herniated disc in an acute phase should avoid flexing the hip beyond a comfortable range and consult a professional before practicing. Exercise number 3, lying quadriceps stretch. What many people do not know is that tightness in the front of the thigh is one of the main causes of short and unstable steps when walking after 60. The quadriceps, especially the rectus femoris, crosses both the knee and the hip, so when it is shortened, it limits both movements at the same time. To perform the exercise, lie on your side, bend the top knee bringing your heel toward your glute, and hold your ankle or the top of your foot with your hand. Keep both knees aligned next to each other without letting the hip open forward. This is essential so that the stretch actually reaches the quadriceps and does not get lost in the lower back. The extra tip here is to gently push the hip forward while pulling the heel back, as this intensifies the stretch in the rectus femoris, which is the portion that also acts as a hip flexor. A very common mistake is rotating the trunk, or the hip, to compensate for a lack of flexibility, which removes the effectiveness of the movement and can cause lower back discomfort. If you cannot reach your foot with your hand, use a band or the sheet from your own bed wrapped around the ankle. Hold the stretch for 20 to 30 seconds, repeating 2 to 3 times on each side. It's worth emphasizing that this stretch tends to be one of the most neglected and leg-focused routines, since most people focus only on strengthening the quadriceps and forget that a shortened muscle, even if strong, still limits the range of motion in daily life. Keeping this muscle group with good extensibility also makes simple tasks easier, such as bending down to pick something up off the floor or taking longer strides when walking. Contraindications: people with a recent meniscus or ligament injury in the knee, or who have recently undergone surgery on the joint, should avoid bending the knee beyond the point of mild discomfort and seek medical clearance beforehand. Exercise number 4, straight leg raise. The beauty of this exercise lies in its ability to strengthen the quadriceps without requiring the knee to bend repeatedly, which significantly reduces the shearing forces on the joint. This is exactly why it is one of the first exercises prescribed in orthopedic rehabilitation after knee surgeries, since it activates the muscle with minimal joint risk. The muscle groups worked are the quadriceps, primarily the rectus femoris, the hip flexors, and the core, which needs to remain stable to protect the lower back during the movement. To perform it, lying flat on your back, bend one knee with the foot resting on the mattress, and keep the other leg fully extended. Contract the quadriceps of the extended leg before raising it, as if locking the knee, and then lift that leg to approximately the height of the bent knee on the other side. The extra tip is precisely that prior contraction of the quadriceps before initiating the lift, as this ensures a much more efficient muscle recruitment than simply swinging the leg upward. A common mistake is using momentum to lift the leg, losing real muscular tension, and another is letting the lower back arch during the movement, which is a sign that the core is not stabilizing as it should. Do 2 to 3 sets of 8 to 12 repetitions for each leg, controlling both the lifting and the lowering phase. A simple and safe progression is to gradually increase the number of repetitions, going from 8 to 10 and then to 12 repetitions per set before thinking about adding any extra sets. Avoid skipping steps just because the movement seems easy at first. The real demand shows up in the last repetitions of each set, when the quadriceps is already more fatigued. Contraindications: acute lower back pain or recent hip surgery require professional evaluation before practicing this movement, since it involves direct activation of the hip flexors. Exercise number 5, pillow squeeze between the knees. No, the idea here is not to replace the pillow with your bed partner, let alone cause a morning argument. The real goal is to activate a muscle group that most people never train consciously: the hip adductors, those inner thigh muscles that rarely appear in any traditional exercise routine. This exercise intensely works the hip adductor group and the deep hip stabilizers, muscles that are essential for keeping the pelvis aligned during walking and for balance when changing direction. To perform it, lie flat on your back with your knees bent and feet resting on the mattress. Place a pillow between your knees and squeeze it, firmly contracting the adductors for a few seconds before releasing. The extra tip is to exhale slowly while squeezing the pillow, as this prevents you from holding your breath during the isometric contraction, which is an extremely common mistake in this type of movement. Another mistake is trying to squeeze using the force of your feet or knees in isolation, instead of feeling the contraction coming from inside the thigh. Hold each squeeze for 5 to 10 seconds, repeating 10 to 15 times in 2 to 3 sets. Recommendation: if you find a regular pillow too easy, use a firmer pillow or Pilates ball to gradually increase the resistance without needing complicated progressions. Because it is a very low-impact exercise, it can be repeated more than once a day, including at night before bed, without overloading the hip joint. What many people do not know is that the adductors play a fundamental role every time you change direction while walking, whether to step around an obstacle or turn in a narrow hallway at home. A weak adductor increases the chance of lateral instability, which is precisely the type of imbalance that most often leads to falls in people over 60. Strengthening this muscle group, even with an exercise as simple as squeezing a pillow, directly contributes to firmer and safer steps. Contraindications: people with a recent hip surgery involving restrictions on adduction movements or a diagnosed inguinal hernia should avoid this exercise without prior medical clearance. Exercise number 6. Glute bridge. Few people know this, but the gluteus maximus is the largest muscle in the human body, and yet it is one of the most neglected. Especially after 60, when time spent sitting tends to increase and the natural activation of that muscle throughout the day decreases considerably. A weak glute does not only affect aesthetics, it directly compromises pelvic stabilization and is closely linked to the development of chronic lower back pain. I have observed that regular practitioners of this movement report less lower back pain within just a few weeks, as well as more strength when climbing stairs. This happens because a well-activated gluteus maximus generates an interesting metabolic effect after training, known as excess post-exercise oxygen consumption, which is greater the larger the muscle being worked, and the glute is the largest of them all. The muscle groups worked are the gluteus maximus as the primary mover, the hamstrings as a synergist, and the spinal erectors stabilizing the lower back. To perform the exercise, lie flat on your back, knees bent, feet resting on the mattress close to your glutes, and lift your hips by firmly contracting the glutes until you form a straight line from your shoulders to your knees. The extra tip is to squeeze the glute for a full second at the top of the movement before lowering, as this increases time under tension and muscle recruitment. A common mistake is driving the movement using lower back strength instead of the glutes, which can cause discomfort in the spine. Another mistake is positioning your feet too far from your glutes, which reduces the activation of the target muscle. Do 2 to 3 sets of 10 to 15 repetitions, progressing over time to 3 sets of 15 repetitions. As a progression, after mastering the basic movement well, you can increase the hold time at the top of the bridge, holding for 2 to 3 seconds instead of just 1 second, which increases time under tension on the glutes without needing any extra equipment. Contraindications: a lumbar herniated disc in an acute phase or recent spinal surgery require medical evaluation before practicing this exercise. Exercise number 7, heel slide. While the quadriceps tends to receive all the attention in leg workouts, the hamstrings continue to be constantly overlooked. And this imbalance between the two muscle groups is one of the main causes of knee pain and injuries over the years. Working both knee flexion and hip extension, the two primary functions of the hamstrings, is essential for protecting that joint during everyday walking. This exercise directly activates the hamstrings, both in the concentric and eccentric phases of the movement, while also requiring calf control. To perform it, lying flat on your back, with your legs extended, slide one heel toward your glute, bending the knee while keeping your foot in constant contact with the mattress, and then slowly extend the leg back to the starting position. The extra tip lies precisely in controlling the eccentric phase well, meaning the moment when the leg extends back. This phase tends to be neglected but represents an enormous portion of the strengthening potential of the movement. If you feel friction when sliding your heel on the sheet, wear a thin sock on your feet, as this makes the movement much smoother and avoids unnecessary interruptions. A common mistake is lifting the foot off the mattress instead of sliding it, which causes a loss of control over the range of motion, and another is performing the movement too quickly, which reduces actual muscle recruitment. Do 2 to 3 sets of 10 to 12 repetitions for each leg, always controlling the speed. A mistake I see many people make is thinking this movement is too weak to produce results, but precisely because it works through a controlled range of motion with no impact, it tends to be well tolerated even by those who experience discomfort with more traditional leg exercises. Regular practitioners report less stiffness when bending the knee in the morning within just the first few weeks of consistent practice. Contraindications: people with a recent knee replacement or a meniscus injury in an acute phase should avoid this movement until receiving medical clearance, as it requires full flexion of the joint. Exercise number 8, scissor kicks. Closing this sequence with a core exercise is not a coincidence. Having strong legs means nothing if the pelvis does not have a stable base to support each step, and that is exactly the function of the core during walking, to stabilize the spine and transfer force between the upper and lower body. This exercise intensely works the rectus abdominis, especially the lower portion, as well as the hip flexors such as the iliopsoas, with the obliques acting as stabilizers throughout the entire movement. To perform it, lying flat on your back, Lift both extended legs slightly, just a few inches above the mattress, and alternate crossing one leg over the other, as if making a scissors motion. The extra tip is to keep your lower back pressed against the mattress throughout the entire exercise. If you feel your lower back arching or lifting off the mattress, that is a sign that you need to reduce the range of motion or the height of your legs. A very common mistake is holding your breath during the effort. The ideal is to maintain steady breathing, exhaling during the crossing of the legs. Do 2 to 3 sets of 10 to 15 repetitions on each side, or for those just starting out, keep the movement continuous for 20 to 30 seconds. Contraindications: people with significant abdominal diastasis, a diagnosed abdominal hernia, or acute lower back pain should avoid this exercise or significantly reduce the range of motion. If you have uncontrolled high blood pressure, pay attention to any dizziness when keeping your legs elevated and stop the movement if that happens. These 8 movements together form a complete routine that activates circulation, mobility, glute strength, adductors, hamstrings, quadriceps, and core, all without getting out of bed and in just a few minutes each morning. Regular practitioners can notice a real difference in walking stability within just a few weeks of consistent practice. And the best part is that this routine can be done every day, since the intensity is light enough to avoid excessive fatigue, yet consistent enough to generate real adaptation over time. If you enjoyed this and also want to see some isometric exercises capable of turning ordinary people into strength machines on par with the best military soldiers, we have a video appearing right now on the screen showing each one of them in detail. I have not seen anyone else talking about this, so make sure you check it out. Thank you for watching all the way through, and may God bless you, my friend.